So just going to double check we are live on this. You should be. Do you know my page on the Symmetry of Health YouTube? So if you got it, because I can send you the link.
Yeah, I probably do know it somewhere, but I can just search.
I'll quickly send you it.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Hello, everyone. Hello, and welcome to the Talking Stick Show. So I'm just sending James a link just so he can share the YouTube link, and then we'll be all ready to go.
You sending me that through on Facebook, yeah?
Facebook, yeah, it's gone through to you, bro.
Okay,
so hello, everyone. Thank you for watching. So I am back, and this is the Talking Stick Show. So I've not had a Talking Stick Show for a good few weeks now, as I've been on a project with Andrew Bartis, Laura Massey, and Matty Waller, and we have been working together and coming up with a new platform for Andrew Bartis' new teachings on locals.com. So if you are wanting any more, and if you're wanting new teachings and to join our new community, we're on locals.com. And if you want to type in Two Feathers Medicine, and there's lots of new exciting stuff coming in. So what an honor it is today to welcome my brother James back onto the show. So he was on the show a few months ago. Hello, James. How are you doing, bro?
Hi, Dale. I'm good, thank you. Yeah. I'm doing well.
Good. And nice to have you back on the show. How's things been with you since we last talked?
Yes, really good. I came on your course, which was excellent, the psychic surgery course, and I'm doing a 12-month shamanic practitioner training, and I had like a week residency down in Glastonbury. That was like shamanic boot camp, like 12 hours a day essentially, with a few breaks for like 5 days. That was intense, but beautiful. And yeah, just been getting on with things, putting some events on. I was mentioning just before we went live, I did a recent event with that was like a combination of sound healing with a sound bath and a light bath as well, with this guy who I've connected with, who's creating these like lights that give like a meditative DMT like experience. So that was a really interesting event.
Yeah, so we'll go more into that later on in the show. And we'll start with those who are watching this and like, who is James Dearden Bush? What does he do? So if you want to give the listeners a little bit about your background and what you do, and a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, sure. So my name's James Dearden Bush. I am a holistic healer essentially. I do hands-on healing, primarily working with Kundalini energy and source energy. I do group shamanic breathwork journeys using like holotropic breathwork, and I'm a musician as well. I create ambient music, like soundscape, peaceful music, and that's a real passion of mine. And it's all with healing intent, like my music. It's all like, putting that transformative healing energy into the music. And I also do sound healing as well. So that's generally my things that I do. Yeah.
Outstanding. And so where you first came on the show and you came to the workshop as well, and instantly I connected with how authentic you are, and very, I'd say, gentle but powerful in a way that is very calming. And the work you do is very calming as well. It's very from a neutral perspective, which is great. So we're going to be working together coming into this solstice period, where we'll be doing an event as well, which we'll talk about a bit later. But I want to talk about what you've been up to. So you've done that shamanic practitioner course, did you say? What's that been about, and what are some of the experiences you've gone through doing that?
Yeah, it's been beautiful. I'm about halfway through it at the moment. The week in Glastonbury was with the same people I'm working with, a couple called Rick and Sheila Blackwell. It's Spirit of the Sacred Drum is their like website and stuff, and they're amazing teachers. And the week in Glastonbury, it was called Dancing with Divinity. So it was all about merging the inner masculine, feminine energies. We did lots of shamanic journeying. We did some breath work, which was great for me because I'm used to holding them. It's quite a while since I've been in one as a participant, so that was amazing. I was just like dropping straight into it and just clearing lots of stuff. So that was really powerful. And it was taking us on a journey to essentially get to a point where we had like this hand fasting ceremony for our own inner masculine and feminine energies towards the end of the week, and that was just it was really powerful. And yeah, just a deep dive into balancing those energies within, because I think that's really important for us to do, essentially.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
So in the last year, what have you learned about spirituality, and what are some of the big things you've learned in your years and coming into this last year? Because for me, this year has been very crazy, but good, and a lot of realizations of stuff I needed to work on. So what has it been like for you this last year? It feels like this year's just flown by, and we're already in Christmas already. It's like they say when you get older, time speeds up, and I kind of feel like that might be true or might not be.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe it's just happening in the collective as well.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, this last year. Well, I mean, I spoke about my journey in the last podcast, because one of the things I do as well is I'm like a Kundalini guide for people going through the Kundalini working experience, because I went through a very intense and deep journey with that energy awakening 12 years ago. And yeah, I won't go into it all, because obviously we did that in the last podcast, but I went through a really deep initiation from spirit, and there was lots of physical pain involved. I was bedbound for quite a few years, lots of expanded states of consciousness as this energy brought up everything that needed to be seen in me and healed and integrated. And it was overwhelming at times, but as the years have progressed, it's become more integrated into my being. And yeah, that energy I work with in my healing practices. I think this year, the biggest lesson this year has probably been bringing all that back into the physical, like really grounding it and understanding that all those experiences and those expanded states of consciousness that we can move into, they're beautiful and they're quite alluring in a certain way, and that mystical narrative that can take over our lives. And the main lesson for me this year has been, okay, but how do you ground that into 3D and really staying just bringing it into the physical life and honoring all that side of it as well, and not being too out there. That's been a big lesson for me, because ultimately this is what I chose. From my perspective, I chose to incarnate in this reality and have this 3D experience. So it's really been about honoring that and tuning into that. That's definitely been my biggest lesson this year. It's like, I always think of that. It's quite a well-known quote, but before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. But like the way you're doing that has changed. It's the same action, but the state of consciousness and the presence that you bring to it has shifted. Yeah.
Incredible. And that's it is for me, and that's why I have, so each week I have one day off where I completely switch off my spiritual stuff, spiritual locomotion, whatever you want to call it. And like you said, I go and chop wood and do stuff in the 3D. And I feel that a lot of people can get obsessed, which I have been in the past with the journey, and with obsession comes away from spirituality, where you can be too spiritual. And when you're too spiritual, that is obsession, and that's not being in your true authentic frequency. And for me, I have to have those times off, and sometimes it's hard for me to switch off because I'm doing a lot of stuff. Then that day I've got to switch off. I'm like, but I need to do this, I need to do that. So there's a lot of stuff which comes up for me on those days off, and sometimes it doesn't happen. I have to move the day forward because something goes on or something comes up for me. But you're very right. It's about experiencing the 3D and realizing you have the spiritual contract which you talked about. I have my spiritual contracts, which are different but similar, that we all have to be here in the body in the 3D world, maybe going into 4D at times, 5D when we're actually out dreaming in our body and at night.
Yeah.
But that's it. It's about being in the physical, being in the body, being here, and trying not to be anywhere else. The amount of people who do meditations and go and you ask them, how was it? And they're like, I don't know, I was out of my body. And that again is moving away from spirituality, because you've got to learn to master the art of being in the body, having as much soul presence as you possibly can in the I am now presence awareness, in the skin suit, in the body. And that's what I've learned, brother, through the times of how important it is to be grounded, be here, experience even random shit like someone touching you, or just something so random and beautiful, just knowing you're here to experience those feelings, those smells, those tastes, that touch, using all the senses in that way. So what we could connect it to now is, so with what's going on at the moment and with so much madness going on in the world, with the Muppets and the clowns ruling the planet, so to say, what would you say for people who find it hard, who want to come out of their shell, but they're a bit nervous about coming out into group spaces? Because I do feel what you're doing, what I'm doing, is setting up little bubbles of reality for people to come together and co-create with, and actually realize, hang on a minute, there is a regular healing communities out there. There is places I can go, let down, be vulnerable. So from your perspective, James, what would you recommend for those who are a bit who find it hard to come out the shell in the hermit way, who really need that kind of connection?
Yeah, who want to sort of come to ceremonies and start their healing journey and things like that. Yeah. I'll just say on what you were just saying as well before I get into that. Yeah, from my perspective, like the body is the alchemical vessel which allows us to transmute all this stuff. Like you feel the feelings in the body, you feel the emotions in the body, even the pain that's stored in the body through a lot of these things. Like the body is the place for transformation to occur in this reality. So yeah, it's about having that balance between touching these spiritual realms and really grounding it into your being. So yeah, totally agree with everything you're saying there. So for people stepping out of the shell, yeah, that's an interesting question. I think
I'm just going to shut my door. It's getting quite chilly.
All right, yeah, no
2 seconds. Keep going, bro.
Sure. Yeah, for me, the simple answer is not putting too much pressure on yourself, taking small steps at a time, having the courage to take those little steps to step into that kind of place, and really being compassionate with yourself, because anytime you step into any healing work, it can bring up a lot of things that you don't want to look at. So you've got to be really gentle with yourself, really compassionate, really allow that process to unfold. And I can't speak for everybody's space, but I know, the space that you hold and that I hold, these are very safe, welcoming, inviting spaces with no judgment of where somebody is on the spiritual journey. I kind of abhor like the spiritual hierarchy that sometimes occurs in certain circles and things. It's like everybody is on there exactly where they're meant to be on their own journey and in the right space. And for me personally, when somebody comes to a breathwork ceremony, for example, I'm welcoming that person and meeting that person where they're at and honoring where they're at on their journey. So just knowing that that's the space that you're going to step into, and you're going to be held and given love from the space that you're in. I think a part of it as well is trusting in yourself, trusting in your journey. If you're feeling called to do these kind of things, there's a reason that you're feeling that pull, and it's about tuning into your own power and honoring that it's the right time for you to move into that. There's a massive global awakening going on. I mean, there's obviously a lot of darkness in this world and a lot of suppression and all sorts of things. But just for me, when I started waking up or getting into all this stuff, probably 15 years ago was probably when it really started. I didn't know anybody who was into the stuff I was getting into. Nobody in my circle of friends, nothing like that. And now there's way more people and communities everywhere and places where you can come and get guidance from people who've actually been on this path quite a while and are going to be able to help you through some of those fears, some of the pitfalls, because there's plenty of pitfalls on the spiritual journey as well.
Many.
So yeah, I think, I mean, it's almost such obvious advice. It's ridiculous to say, but it is about just taking that step. It's just having that confidence to be, yes, I'm going to step into this, and yeah, trusting.
And that's it. And let's talk about the pitfalls, because that is a good, for me, I've experienced it before, where you'd have a pitfall and all of a sudden you just give up and say, right, it's too much. I'm not going to bother doing this. I'm not going to bother doing that. Let's talk about how these events can help people with those pitfall stops and how to rebuild themselves.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, one of the pitfalls, I think, that can make people give up is not fully realizing that the universe sometimes gives you your biggest gifts disguised as your worst nightmares. You know, like when you step onto this path, like a lot of negative, inverted commas, stuff can come at you because it's all the stuff you weren't looking at that's coming up to be healed, coming up to be integrated. Your life might collapse, you know, you might lose friends, potentially relationships, all sorts of other things, because you're raising out of that state of consciousness that was pulling those experiences in. And that can be frightening. It's like, oh no, I just wanted to be a good boy doing my meditation and ascending. It's like reality's throwing all this stuff at you. So
I don't like people. That's a big one. I don't like people. That, well, there's some inner work for you to do, love.
Yeah, exactly. Because this journey is very much about turning the eye inwards and looking at you know, there are situations, there's a lot of mirroring going on in our world. Like a lot of it is within. That's not to excuse like some people's negative behavior. You've got to find that balance. But so yeah, what was your question exactly about how?
So how can this? So people who are going through hard times in a way, how can, say, an event of yours, event of your mind, and one coming up with co-creating with, and the winter solstice period, how can those help people kind of chart a course and really find themselves again?
Yeah. So I can speak to breath work for sure, because that's the field that I do most of my group work in. And that process can, I mean, for anybody who hasn't done like holotropic breath work, it's almost whatever I say isn't going to be as powerful as the experience it is. I have quite a lot of people come to the group breathworks and they're like, they're not sure what it's going to be like, and afterwards they're like, oh my god, it was incredible, it was way beyond their expectations of what can come up in that. So it can help people move forward by really getting into the areas where they're blocked, and they don't even have to think about it. It's not like when you go into, say, like psychotherapy and you've got to go through all this stuff and talk about it. In the breath work, it's going to get straight to the body. It's going to get straight to where the emotions are trapped, where those blockages are, emotional or even physical pain can be released. And you're going to get a purging of that, or at least shown where these blockages are in your life. And there's a separation that occurs as well in the breath work often. So you're not in the story. It's like you get to observe these emotions coming up, and these sometimes memories and like past traumas coming up, and you get to observe them being processed often during the journey. And people have really big emotional releases. And also what often happens at the end of a breathwork journey, when you drop into the part where you've come back to normal breathing and just in a peaceful place. I curate my journeys to music, so there's really gentle music for the last 20 minutes, and you'll just get insights just dropping in. Like insights will just drop in about what you need to do in your life, perhaps, or somewhere you need to change, and you just get this real clarity from it. And obviously, it goes without saying, that can really help you move forward in the direction that you need to. The sense of coming into a space that is held energetically and that feels safe to allow this to release, that's really important. And community as well. I do a lot of my work out of a community centre. It's called Satapana Wellness Hub, just changed the name. And there's other like-minded people that you meet, and that helps you lift you up on your journey. Because if you're just this isolated person without being able to talk to this about anybody, a lot of my clients, when I'm doing Kundalini guidance sessions for people, one of the main things is just having somebody to talk to who they can understand the experience and find that kind of sense of companionship and community. And that's really important. It lifts you up and makes you feel not crazy or not alone, or so I think that's part of it as well.
And that's it, that beautiful community feeling where you're going and you're talking about each other's experience, and you feel like, yeah, that's exactly right. You're not alone in these experiences. And we do need community. We do need people around us. And for all those hermits now listening, maybe it's time for you to look inwards, and breath work is one of the ways to gauge your way out of what you're in. To a place where you can go and gauge your way out of, say, the choppy waters into more of a smooth water. I know a lot of people who've basically been able to get rid of their social anxiety from breath work, regular breath work. I've had one lady who came on the course who started doing some breath work sessions, and she said, wow, I can actually live my life now. I can actually understand of how fucking powerful breath work is, and working with the breath and realizing breath is light. That's all it is. It's a different form of light. And when you're doing the breathing in and out, you're just basically increasing so much fucking light within you. And it gets to the point where your Kundalini starts activating and so on. So trauma with breath work, James, and how does it work with trauma doing the breath work? And for those who have had trauma or the physical stuff stuck in them, how does the breath work help with that?
Yeah, well, like you said, when you're doing the holotropic breath work, you're taking big, deep breaths in this continuous cyclical motion, and the breath, like as you just said, breath is light. You're bringing life force energy into these stagnant areas. It's like really flooding the body, also flooding the body with oxygen and allowing the cells to purge, like on a physical level, but then it's mainly working on this energetic level of bringing that life force energy into the body. And when you bring more life force energy into the body, anything that isn't anything that's of a, let's say, lower vibrational frequency than that is going to get dislodged and come up for healing and integration. And I think that's one of the main reasons why a lot of trauma can come up in these sessions, because that higher frequency of energy is coming into these dark places and essentially bringing that up for integration and to be seen and released. So yeah, that's one of the ways.
Beautiful. And I had a personal experience where I think I did an hour's worth of doing some breathing work, and it basically got to a point where I had some really trapped, nasty energy stuck in my foot, and I could feel it just purging out of me. My body was just finally being able to have enough light to get rid of it. So yeah, it's incredible.
Yes, it's amazing how it can happen very quickly as well. Sometimes, like once you start breathing, it's like these areas where there is that tension start to be really felt. And I encourage people to consciously take the breath and consciousness into those areas, and you'll often find like the physical aspect, maybe like the pain might get more and more and more and build, and then there'll be like this kind of letting go of it. It's almost like gets to this point and then releases. So yeah, it's amazing how you just find these different areas in your body. It's almost like it allows some level of your consciousness just to scan all these areas and be like, right, that needs to come next. Yeah, it had a massive impact on me when I started doing this type of breathing. I was going through a really difficult time around some, well, yeah, I won't get into it, but I was going through a really difficult time. And when I first went there, when I first did breath work, I was literally just in tears for about half an hour afterwards. I just couldn't stop crying. It was just all this sadness and frustration that I hadn't been able to release up until that point. And it was just pouring out afterwards. And I say I couldn't stop. I didn't want to stop. It was like it was like this overflowing. It's like so what I needed. And you'll feel the energy in the body as well, like moving around and often, and people have like spontaneous body movements sometimes, and it just, yeah, it's incredible.
Beautiful,
really
man.
Powerful.
And it reminded me, so when my father passed away, in 4-month period, he passed away quite suddenly. So when I found out he was diagnosed with a brain tumor, so it was hard for me to do my regular schedule and be in a state. I was in limbo. It was like a limbo state I was in. And the only thing I could really process and do each day, 6 days a week, was breath work continuously. Because for me, it feels like when you're doing the breath work, you're turning off the parasympathetic or the medulla and the shadow programs. It's like you're basically expelling them from your body and overriding your body with this light. So those aspects or anxiety or paranoia programs completely just go to the ground and neutralize, and they disappear. It's like a form of self-psychic surgery, isn't it? Really, when you
Yeah.
when you think about the mechanics of it and what you're doing with moving it all around, you're basically doing that self-psychic surgery. I've never really thought about it like that, but that's how it feels speaking about it.
Excuse me. Got a bit of a chest.
Yeah, so and that's it. And some of those states, people have got into it through it. And if you're listening and you've done breathwork once, I highly recommend coming to an event. If you're not in this country or not near us, go find someone who does breathwork workshops and give it a go. Just see how it feels. And yeah, it is life-changing stuff. It's one of my many tools I use, and it's helped me greatly. Is there anything you want to add to that, James, before we'll move on to the ambient music after?
No, I think that's good. Yeah, we're good. We're good with that. I was going to mention on the community side of things when we were talking about that. So maybe I'll just share that. Like, I think there's a certain amount of healing you can do on your own as an individual, and you can go very deep and do a lot of healing work. But then there's another layer, like, for example, when you step into a relationship, because that's going to bring there's certain things that can't be healed, and then on a broader scale, like a community. And then, it's like these layers of healing. So I think it's about, just honoring that and tuning into that as well.
Beautiful. And that's it. Even with relationships, especially relationships, when you're with someone, you may not be able to see some of the subtle things you do, which are negative, or the subtle things you have, which you can't look at, or you're blind like the bat. You're completely blind. So sometimes having someone to come in and not judge you, but give you a perspective what you weren't seeing.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, definitely.
You have to suck it up, Buttercup, don't you? You have to. You have to suck it up moment and go, oh shit, yeah, I need to change that. And no shame, no guilt. Forgive yourself for it. Forgive how you were, and understand that you can change at all times. And this is it. The deeper layers of forgiveness we can give to ourselves. And
that's so important. Sorry. That's so important. That self-compassion. It's so important, because once you start doing the healing work, you see all the ways in which you were unconscious, or you still are unconscious, and it's very easy to get into that negative loop of putting yourself down and thinking you're not good enough. And it's massive. Self-compassion it's really important.
And that's it. And the amount of people who get themselves on pedestals and all of these great masters at healing, what's the word, gurus and stuff like that, they give people an aspect of that there is such thing as a perfect spiritual being with no problems, but that's just bullshit. It's just an ideology, a marketing. Everyone has some mistakes. Everyone has their stuff, what they need to work on, or things they do wrong. I'd say mistakes aren't mistakes. Mistakes, if you see a mistake as something you can grow with, then it's not a mistake. It's just a lesson and an experience. But I think a mistake, if you're doing it over and over again deliberately, and you're doing it, that's a different mistake. I feel that's more karmic. It's about being aware, and I do stuff wrong. I've got stuff I still work on within me, and seeing that, and seeing people like me and you coming out, especially males and men. I don't really see as many men groups as female groups, which again is another aspect of the divine masculine and how that's disappeared. And it's harder for men to talk and feel like they can express themselves. And we still do them. Like, I still have my mistakes, but looking back at the over 10 years on this healing journey, 10 years on the healing journey, the person I was to the person I am now is completely different. And when you make that mistake, grow from it, heal from it. And the more you heal from it, the more the inner work you'll do on yourself, and the more brighter of an energy you'll be, until the point where you've done 8 years of inner work on yourself, and you get to the level that you get to the level that, in a sense, that it's easier for you to, like me having conversation with you, James, being out in public. 8 years ago, I wasn't able to do that. 8 years ago, I wouldn't be able to do a psychic surgery workshop for 4 days in a row of teaching and talking. That person wouldn't have the ability to do that back then. I would have been scared shitless.
Exactly. And I think totally. I think that taps into that idea that I was trying to articulate earlier on as well. Just take little steps. It's like, I'll just post a little thing on Facebook or whatever you use, just something, and then you'll build that confidence up to step more and more and more. It's It's really as simple as that. Doing the action in the world.
Yes, that's it, bro. Action. And it does work. And we're living proof that it does work. Taking your time, doing the inner work, making mistakes, keep going. We're all in this together, and we're all going through similar experiences. But again, it comes down to the I am presence and choices we make. We make these choices, good, bad, in between. If we want to make the choices to give ourselves lack or have people, negative Nancy's in our life, people who drain the fuck out of us, you've got to think it's you, the person who makes that choice. You can tell them not to be in your life. You can disentangle from them. You can be out of a relationship which is really draining you or abusing you. So in some sense, it's from the years, James, have you learned responsibility in a different way?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I've learned to honor my own energy a lot more. Probably because before I didn't even really know about my own energy. I
was vegan before vegan was a thing. 10 years ago, there wasn't any fucking vegan shops, and I was vegan. I'm not vegan anymore, but I experienced that shit before it was even a thing.
So it's like I'm very much more conscious of what's going on energetically with me, because beforehand I was much more pulled into these situations without even stepping back and looking at it from a higher perspective. So yeah, there's definitely that. And I mean, I feel what's happened for me, because I did have a very long, very intense hermit phase. And I think I did a lot of, well, I know I did a lot of deep inner healing in that time. And so when I kind of came back into the world, it was like situations just came about where I was already connecting with like people on a similar wavelength and things like that. So it almost kind of fell into place for me in a lot of ways. But yeah, I'm a lot more confident at setting boundaries as well. I think that was something I struggled with when I was younger, taking on other people's stuff. That was very much something I did when I was younger as well. And just being able to essentially just like pull my aura in situations that I need to, and not be too overextended. But then if I'm holding space, kind of extend that within
recovering empath, you call it, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm a recovering empath as well. I've moved away from that term.
yeah. So yeah.
And I'm recovering light worker. That's another one of you.
Yeah, I like that phrase.
So the empathy, we'll quickly talk about that. And my understanding, and one of my my teacher Andrew Bartis got me onto the I'd say the hindsight and foresight about everything. And so empathy is kind of a form we have. It's one of the lowest forms of our spiritual mechanics we can use. And it's basically, it's absorbing people's shit. And if you think about it, if you're going to go out and, like you say, you bring your energy in, and that's very important. When you go out into a space full of people in kind of a dirty underwear environment where people don't do any work, they've got ghost demons attached to them, very negative stuff going on. If you're out there with your empathy turned on, all you're doing is absorbing their ghost and their shit, and you're going to be anxious as fuck. You're going to be overthinking, so on and so forth. So using those skills, like you said, spot on. When you're out, bring your energy into yourself. That's all you need to do, is keep your own shit, keep your own field. And if someone does engage you, maybe there's a bit of co-creation of sharing a little bit of auric energy together, but not like empath, or I can't go out, or a mouse farts in the other bit of the room and I can hear it and it makes me all like, oh my God, a mouse farted. You need to turn off for that, turn those sides of yourself off.
That's true. I mean, and there might be a period, like there were periods for me where during my awakening where like that expanded state was uncontrollable. It was like I was blown open, you know? And then it's sort of gradually sort of come back into a more, and so if you are in that space, honor it, and as well, but it is important to start using these techniques to hold your own energy. And present moment practice is like, you know, the type of sort of power of now that Eckhart Tolle writes about in The Power of Now. That kind of thing was massive for me as well, because it's just being present in every moment, every action, as much as possible. You know, chopping the carrots in the kitchen and like being with that process, that kind of thing. And that really helps hold that energy in your own kind of field and aura. Yeah.
Beautiful. So for all of those empaths out there, maybe there's another way, a way
Yeah.
inwards.
Yeah. Like compassion, maybe compassion over empathy, because compassion,
Yes.
is holding that loving space, but without having to like feel their stuff and take it on as your own.
Yes. Beautiful, man. And that's it. And when you learn, when you go through that, because I was an empath, I was couldn't go out in groups at some point because I could feel everyone's stuff, but it got to the point where I had to understand that was taking me away from my own journey. And to learn self-mastery skills is to be able to be in the body, not absorbing other people's stuff as well. It's still, sometimes I do absorb a few things now and then when I'm low energy. I won't mean to do it. It's just the nature of the beast, really. But we'll move on to the music then. So we've got this special event coming up on the 20th of December. So we are going to be in Huntington in York Community Centre, and myself and James will be doing a special co-creation. Would you like to explain a little bit about it, James, and what we're doing?
Yes. So in terms of the well, there'll be breathwork there, but we've obviously already covered that.
Yes.
In terms of the ambient guitar, yeah, I've been a musician for over a quarter of a century now, and I before my spiritual awakening, I was in a band, and it was like my total ambition to like be a famous musician, and it was like all my intention was on that. So it's been a massive passion of mine for a long time. During the Kundalini journey and some of the years I was physically so overwhelmed and in pain by that process, I couldn't pick up the guitar for like about 6 years, in fact, maybe even 7 years. But during that time, and as I said, I was bedbound quite a lot, I was listening to, I could barely take in anything. I couldn't watch TV or a film or any music that was too strong. Was just like, oh my God, it was too much for my, but I started listening to this beautiful ambient music, like some of Brian Eno's stuff and Constance Denby, and just these beautiful, soothing music that I would have on. And I kind of just felt, okay, or it was a bit of an if at that point, if I get to be able to create music again, that's the path I want to go down, this music that's really gentle and healing and peaceful. And so, yeah, a few years ago when I kind of got my strength back and picked up the guitar again, that's what I went into. And the music was just, it's just really flowing through. I found, it felt like the music was, my relationship to creating music changed. It was like the song's already there and I'm finding the next notes and like finding this template, and it's like being channeled down almost, instead of, all right, I'm going to write a song and like this a bit more, a bit more struggle energy to it, I guess, in the past. Not so much, because music always comes from that space, really. And so, I've got a couple of albums out, and my whole intention with that music, every time I'm recording, I'm trying to get into this space of just putting that peaceful healing energy out into the music, into the writing process, into the whole journey of the creation of that. And at the event we're doing, I'm going to be doing, you could call it like an ambient guitar sound bath. My second album that I released is called Ambient Drones Thoughts of Eden, and it's this very droney, soundscapey, minimal sort of work. And I'm going to be doing that as a part of this event. And Dale, you're going to be doing like psychic surgery while we do that. So we're getting this power of, frequency of music is very, very healing. It's healing on an emotional level, but these vibrational frequencies of music also heal the physical body. All my music's tuned to 432 hertz as well, so we're just tapping into that healing frequency of that as well.
Beautiful. And that's it. So there'll be the opening space where we call in protection from the 7 directions, and there'll be the space where James will be playing music and I'll be doing the psychic surgery. And the unique part of doing this psychic surgery while James is doing the music expression would be, it would be able to open up layers to you so I can reach more light within you. So the music would be the medium for people to express and open up, to get to areas where I couldn't regularly get to because there'd be trauma stuck there, or there'd be somewhere blocking that area, say a heart. They wouldn't let me in that way. They'd let me into different parts of the body, but they wouldn't let me into that. So the uniqueness about this is the music will connect to everyone's soul. The music will connect to James's signature frequency and allow them to open a sacred space where more of the psychic surgery and the soul retrieval can happen. So we're working in this co-creation space to help people and regroup people, to help people's mind and body and spirit come back together. So if we've had a bit of confusion, or we've had a shit time, or we just need some healing like everyone does, this is a space for you to be able to come in a non-judgment space with myself and James, and everyone will be in this frequency. We'll be honoring the winter solstice period where we're going to come into the moment where we need the most light within us. So the solstice has come past where we're bringing in the most light, which is available to us. But the winter solstice means for everyone is, how can I increase my light within myself now during these darker times? And these processes are to open up and how to increase our light frequency in the solstice period. And we'll be doing some drumming and dancing after. We'll be celebrating. We'll be getting freaky in the spiritual way. Wrong words, but I just roll with it. Anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, just touching on what you're saying there. Yeah, music, as everybody knows, like practically everybody knows, it can evoke very deep emotional responses in people. And I think one of the things that's really going to be helpful working with you doing the psychic surgery is that music, especially when it's been live, and I'll be reading the energy of the room and, working with that as well. It can really soften people's layers of resistance. It can just move you into a much deeper, relaxed, more meditative state, and therefore you're more open to receive any healing that Dale is going to be doing throughout that. And also, it can bring up other emotions as well. So, yeah.
Outstanding. An example of that would be when someone's so moody, but they turn on a music on the radio, a song comes on for them in the light. Oh, hang on a minute. I'm happy now. I'm enjoying myself. I'm letting myself experience happiness.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. There's a line in a Bob Marley song, and it's like, one good thing about music, when it hits you, you feel no pain. And
yes,
I don't know. I think when I heard that line when I was younger, I didn't really get it, but now I really get it. Like when music really hits you, as in touches you on a deep level, it's almost impossible to feel pain when that kind of energy is just moved through the body, and that in that moment you are free.
Yes.
And that's the power of music. It's straddling the dimensions for me. Music, it really is. It's a magical thing. And I don't know what our lives would be like without music. It's essential to the human spirit in my view.
Beautiful. And so we're going to be on the 20th of December, starting at 5, 6, 7, 8 till around about 8:30, probably 8:30. So everyone's welcome. We've got probably around about 10 tickets left. We may even expand it if we do get those tickets sold. We may even move locations so we can get even more people, up to 20 potentially. So have a look onto the Symmetry of Health Facebook page, and James will post the link as well. And I'll add him as a co-host, so it'll be connected to him. And come along. And even if you aren't coming to that event and you're somewhere else, having a think, what can you do this winter? And what can be your kind of processing? What can be your strategy in order for you to heal and grow? Because we're going to come into a chaotic time again, with people having to find money left, right, and center to buy presents, people having to find money left, right, and center to buy loads of different stuff. The system wants us to go into this paying money everywhere, feeding kind of frenzy. So get yourself in a nice sacred space. Enjoy the winter solstice, celebrate life, love yourself, play some music, or just something what can make you smile, because life is about smiling. And sometimes we do get a bit too serious, and we do need to just tell ourselves to smile, have fun, enjoy the moment, and stop being such a serious Nancy. And I've put my hand up for this. I'm sometimes like that, and I've got to prod myself.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So how can people get a hold of you as well? James is so if you go on my Talking Stick show as well, the previous 7 or 8, James's music's on the start of the intro there. And how can people listen to your music as well if they go on to, what's your YouTube channel called?
Yeah, so my YouTube channel is James Dearden Bush, and I've got videos, I've got my music on there, and then videos talking about my own spiritual journey. I mean, the best place, I guess, to go where you can just get to everything is just my website, which is jamesdeardenbush.com. And Dearden is spelled Dearden, as in like deer for a letter, and then Den. Yeah, so jamesdeardenbush.com is where I would direct people, and add me on Facebook, and use, I'm on the social media platforms.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, brother, for coming on, and I'll look forward to. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, man. And I look forward to the many events we do share together and experience. And I will come over to you at some point. I keep meaning to. It's been absolutely manic and crazy with my schedule at the moment, but I'll get there, and we'll be doing some work together. So thank you, brother.